Hello everyone, we have finished our Commander Spotlights for all our monocolor decks, and today we start our two-color Commander decks, with the first one being Azurius, which is blue and white, and our Commander is Mendicant Core Guidelight. He's a legendary artifact creature robot for a blue and a white, attack power star, and toughness of 3. What it does is his power is equal to the number of artifacts you control, and he has start your engines, which if you have no speed, it starts at 1. It increases once on each of your turns when an opponent loses life, max speed of 4. When we reach max speed, certain cards have effects that activate. This one, for example, whenever you are at max speed and Mendicant Core is out, when you cast an artifact spell, you may pay 1. If you do, copy it, which leads us to the name of the deck, which is Replicating Artifacts. And since we are copying, there's a few other cards that do copy. We have Imposter Mech, which enters as a copy of a creature in opponent's control, except it's a vehicle with crew 3 and loses all other card types. It's a great way to steal a good card, and it's harder to remove because it's no longer a creature, it's just an artifact. Mirror Works, another way to allow you to copy your non-token artifacts as they enter. And Prototype Portal. This has imprint. When it enters the battlefield, you exile an artifact card from your graveyard, and then you tap, put a token that's a copy of the exiled card onto the battlefield, where X is converted mana cost. So we are going to be making lots of copies, and those copies do cost mana, so we do have some ramp. Energy Tap is a card I found when I bought a collection. You tap target creature you control, add an amount of colorless mana equal to that creature's casting cost to your mana pool. So the creature has to be on the battlefield. However, for 1, if you have a big creature, let's say a 7 cost, you'll get 7 mana for that 1. We got some reducers. Ethereum Sculptor, artifact spells you cost 1 less. Foundry Inspector does the same thing. We got Gold Mirror, taps for white. We got Jorah's Familiar, also reduces the cost of historic spells. Lotus Petal, it's a 0-drop, and you tap it to add 1 colorless mana of any color and sacrifice the Lotus Petal. Oaken Siren, it's a creature that taps for blue, and you can only spend it to cast artifact spells or activate an ability of an artifact source. Scaretailer's in here. It allows you to get lands whenever it becomes tapped. We have quite a few vehicles in here, so that would be one way to tap this creature. Silvermere, add a blue, and then Starnheim Courser, not an artifact, but it does reduce the cost of artifact and enchantment spells you cost by 1. So we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 cards that reduce our artifacts. So a 4 CMC cost artifact spell would cost 4 less, so inevitably it'd be free. Now, we do need card draw if we're going to be spending all this mana to cast our hands. We have Transplant Theorist, so whenever an artifact enters, you may draw a card, and if you do, discard a card. It also has Recursion. You pay 2, you put a target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. So you bring stuff back from your graveyard, not necessarily to the battlefield or your hand, but still to your graveyard. Esper Sentinel, when an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless they pay X, where X is its power. So if an opponent casts a non-creature spell, they can either pay 1, if this is just a 1/1, or you get to draw a card. These are the first 2. Then we got Everwatching Threshold. When an opponent attacks you or a planeswalker you control with 1 or more creatures, you draw a card. It's a little defensive to help you stay alive a little bit longer. Whenever Acquisition Octopus or equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. We have a few. Ethersworn Sphinx has Cascade and Affinity for artifacts, so it's going to get cheaper the more artifacts you have. You don't necessarily draw a card, however, you do get to cast a card from the top of your library that's converted mana cost is 6. It's 8 or less. Barrier Mechanist enters a battlefield. You look at the top 3 cards of your library, and you review an artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Shorikai, this was the commander from the Neon Dynasty, the blue-white deck. You pay 1, tap, draw 2 cards, then discard a card, and you make a pilot. So again, this is another I would say effective card draw. You do discard, but we do have some recursion in this deck. Smuggler's Copter. Again, when it attacks or blocks, you draw a card. If you do discard a card with crew of 1, so you can use those pilots to crew it. So we're going to be crewing some vehicles. Now, we want to untap our stuff. We got Drum Bellower. It untaps all creatures you control during each other player's untap step. So you can crew your vehicles pretty much every single turn. Farmstead Glenner untaps itself, and you pay 2, untap it, you put a 1/1 counter on this. So you crew it to a vehicle, pay 2 to untap it to make this guy stronger to crew even more vehicles. Interface Ace, when it crews on your turn, it untaps. So this itself will be able to crew 2 vehicles. Unwinding Clock just untaps all your artifacts. Goes well with the Drum Bellower. And then Voltaic Servant. It's a single untap effect for an artifact, but it's still a good one. Now we're going to want to find these artifacts. Now, Mendicant Core cares about drawing. However, you want to get some on the field right away. So repurposing Bay, you pay 2, sacrifice another artifact, search your library for an artifact card with mana value equal to 1, plus the sacrifice artifact's mana value, and it enters the battlefield. So there's something you want to get out there. So if you want to get your Unwinding Clock, you'll sacrifice 3 cost to bring Unwinding Clock out. Guidelight Pathmaker allows you to tutor for an artifact card. If its mana value is 2 or less, it goes onto the battlefield, or else it goes into your hand. Now, in order to win, we do have a few finishers here. Cyberdrive Awakener, which is the one I just showed you. Other artifact creatures you control have flying, and when it enters until end of turn, each non-creature artifact you control becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness. So, for copying our vehicles, all the artifacts we have, they'll end up being 4/4 with flying. You'll be able to swing to deal a lot of damage. Filigree Attendant, power and toughness are equal to the number of artifacts you control. Again, by having a lot of them on the battlefield, especially with Mendicant Core copying them, this little homunculus will get huge. And Kappa Cannoneer. When it or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you put a 1/1 counter on Kappa Cannoneer, and it can't be blocked this turn. So, and it has Improvise. Your artifacts can help cast this spell. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities pays for 1. Now, we do have 4 mana cost reducers for artifacts. So this already becomes a 2-drop, a blue and a colorless. And you improvise with another artifact, you just pay a blue. This enters, and then you just, when you swing out with it, you just bring out a bunch of artifacts. It gets really, really big. And then Mobilizer Mech. When it becomes crewed, up to 1 other target creature you control becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. So you crew it with Interface Ace. And then another vehicle becomes a creature. Or Interface Ace untaps, you crew it again, another vehicle becomes a creature. So just with these 2, you end up having 3 total vehicles. So those are the finishers that we have. We do have some anthems to make our artifacts stronger. So 2 of them, Chief of the Foundry, other artifact creatures you can control get +1/+1. And Master of Ethereum, who, just like the Filigree, power and toughness are equal to the number of artifacts you control, and it also gives other artifact creatures +1/+1. Now, we are going to need to protect our things, so we do have some removal. First one is Angel of Ruins, an artifact creature that when it enters the battlefield, exile 2 target artifacts and or enchantments. Annex Sentry exiles artifact or creature with mana value 3 or less that an opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. Blind Soul Eater, Disruption, it taps a target creature for paying either a white or 2 life. Line Sash gets 1/1 counters when you exile a card from a graveyard if it was a permanent card, and then it gets +1/+1 for those counters, obviously. And then when you reconfigure it, the creature it's equipped to gets +1/+1 for each counter. Meteor Golem just destroys a target non-land permanent and opponent controls. And if you copy this with Mendicant Core, you'll get 2. We got a counter spell, Saw It Coming. Got Raven Form, exile target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a +1/1 blue bird, and it has Foretell. Swift reconfiguration. I like this card not only because you can use it on your enemies, on your opponent's creatures or vehicles. However, if you have a creature you want to protect, you want to remove that creature type, you enchant your own and it becomes a vehicle. So it's you can't destroy it like you would if it was still a creature. It would be, especially if it's not oh, sorry. Especially if it wasn't a vehicle, it'll become a vehicle. It'll be an artifact, so it'll be able to be removed either with artifact removal and no longer removed by creature unless you crew it. And our board wipe. We only have one board wipe in here, and that's time wipe. Return a creature to your hand, one you control, and then destroy all other creatures. Not a lot of removal, but we have some. I mentioned recursion. We do have some graveyard recursion. We got Barkform Harvester, puts a card from a graveyard to the bottom of the library. Dance of the Mantle, return up to X target artifact and or non-or enchantment cards, each with converted mana cost X or less, from your graveyard to the battlefield. If it's 6 or more, they become 4/4. So this is a great way to bring all your artifacts back out and then swing go wide. Imperial Recovery Unit. Whenever it attacks, return target creature or vehicle card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. Iron Soul Enforcer. When it or your commander attacks, return target artifact from your graveyard to your battlefield. We got Junk Diver. When it dies, you bring an artifact back. Metalwork Colossus. Sacrifice 2 artifacts to return it to your hand. Murray Retriever. When it dies, return another artifact to your hand. Sanctum Gargoyle. When it enters, return an artifact card to your hand from the graveyard. And Scrap Trawler. Whenever Scrap Trawler or another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser converted mana cost. We do have some utility cards. This is Liberator. Gives us the ability to cast colorless spells and artifacts as though they had flash. Same thing with Shimmermere. Artifact spells flash. Platinum Angel. You can't lose the game, and your opponent can't win the game. Platinum Emporium. Your life total can't change, so these are little utility cards that'll help us protect ourselves and our artifacts, because with the Rebek, artifacts you control have protection from each converted mana cost among artifacts you control. And Teferi's Protection. I believe these are only game changer in here. I'm thinking about removing this. I do like the card. I do like the protection it gives you, but it doesn't really fit the theme. Like most of my decks, I do have some form of theft. Stolen goods. Target opponent exiles cards from the top of the library until they exile a non-land card. Until end of turn, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Again, I like playing other people's decks, I guess. So that's why this is in here. And these are all just one-offs. Stolen Cold Serpent, Breach. We don't have a lot of flying in this deck. Not only does this give us reach, it gives us trample and protection for multicolor, and we can bring it out as big as we want. Extruder is a way that we can sacrifice our artifacts to make this bigger, and then recur them through our multiple recursion methods. Blast Dust Hulk. Whenever another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, gets +1/+1 until end of turn and can't be blocked. So it's like Kappa Cannoneer, but not as strong because it's not they're not counters. It's just a +1/+1. So the way to win in this deck is to flood the board with artifacts using our multiple copy abilities, Mendicant Core, Mirrorworks, and making them bigger, make them stronger, and then swinging out. Thank you for watching. We'll be making our next video here shortly. What color combination do you want to see, and what color combination is your favorite? I would say mine is it, so blue and red. So we'll be doing that next week. Thank you for watching.